So today we are going to study about the American Civil War, time period 1861 to 1865. First of all, what do you understand by civil war? We see war is when there is a country that goes into aggression against some foreign or some another country. That is war. But a civil war is a case when there is a battle or a war conflict that is happening inside one own's country. The elements are present in your own country which are fighting against each other. It is not a fight or a war against some foreign element or against some foreign entity or some foreign country. So that is a civil war when it is happening inside between two or more groups inside the same country. What about this American Civil War? The American Civil War was the war that was fought between the northern states of America and the southern states of America. So this war is not against some foreign element, foreign country, but it is happening within America between its northern and the southern states. We have already started about the American War of Independence that was fought against the imperialist power, the British. That was a war that happened with some foreign country, foreign nation against imperialism. This is a civil war which is happening in America between its own northern states and the southern states. So, what is this American Civil War? It is basically the war which is fought between the northern and southern states of America. The time span is from 1861 to 1865. Now, what does this American Civil War is about and what does it result in? Basically, we'll study how it leads to the abolition of slavery in America and it finally results in the unification of United States of America. So first let us understand that why does this civil war happen between the northern and the southern states? What are the points of differences between the north and the south in America? First, we see that North has an industrial economy. Industrial economy where it has many manufacturing centers, many gigantic factories have been set up. In the time period between 1815 to 1860, there is industrial revolution which takes place in the north in America where many industries and factories are set up and it has a more of a industries based economy. So basically, when you have industries, as we have studied in the Industrial Revolution, there are factories set up where all equipments are kept. The workers they come from their homes to the factory, they work at the appointed hours, and then they go back to their homes. For the work they do, they get wages given to them. That is, salaries are paid to them. So basically, since this North had this industrial economy, industries were set up here. So basically, they required wage earners. They wanted workers who will work in return for salary. They are known as wage earners. So these were termed as free states. The northern states, which relied on industrial economy and had wage earners as workers, they were known as free states. While in the southern states, we see there was primarily agricultural economy. There was no major industry set up here. It was basically plantations. Crops were grown here, cash crops and food crops and like that. There was huge plantations of cotton, tea, sugar, tobacco. So there were huge plantations of this and by trade, by exporting these products only, the economy would flourish. So we see that basically the southern states they had an agricultural economy with huge plantations. Now when you have this agricultural economy and you rely on plantations, so you require laborers who would toil themselves and work. A lot of manual labor is required for farming. You have to work since morning till late at night, devote many hours, and this is a very physical labor that is required in this process. So this agricultural economy, this did not require wage earners that you will come daily and get salary for that. It is more viable, it is more favorable for them to have slaves as laborers. If you're not aware of slavery, let me just give you an idea about slavery. Slavery is a system in which slaves were bought from Africa. We see Africa is a very poverty struck region, it still is a very poor country. So we see basically these slaves from Africa, they were brought to the European markets through a slave trade that was in existence at that point of time. Here the landlords and the plantation owners, they would go and buy these slaves from the European markets at a very cheap price. So at a very nominal rate, they will pay a very cheap price and buy these slaves and make them do work on their plantation farms. Now once they have bought the person, this slave belongs to the slave owner. Now he is no more a human, he is just a property of the slave owner. The slave owner can make him do all kinds of work, any kind of work that he wants him to. The slaves, they were made to work for long hours on the plantation farms. Besides that, they were also supposed to do the personal work, the household work of the slave owners. Even if they fell sick or were not in a state to work, still they were forced to work. And they were beaten mercilessly even for showing slight slight deviation from their work, slightly distracted from the work, or any form of lethargy that they showed, they would be beaten mercilessly. And they were treated as objects, they were not given any rights, they were not supposed to have families of their own, they were usually starved badly, they would be hardly provided with basic food or clothing, just enough for their survival. They were denied all forms of rights and any form of liberty or freedom. So we see that these slaves, they were bound to the slave owner in every way. The slave owners would decide how long they are going to work and what they are going to do, what is to be done with them, and there would be no interference in that system. There was no legal system to protect the rights of the slaves. This was very profitable for the slave owners because they just need to buy a labor, only one time expenditure is involved, and that too at very cheap prices. They can buy a slave and make him do any kind of and all kind of work, any work which would require usually 2 or 3 workers would be done now by only one slave. So that is, you're saving the amount that you would be spending on 2 3 people as salaries. Now you're saving it, you're just spending it on one person, just very nominal at a very cheap price, and make him do all kinds of work. So we see that these slaves, they were highly exploited. So this slavery was a very exploitative system, and it was a very social evil that existed at that point of time. But the southern landowners, they were very much in favor of it. Why so? Because it was very profitable. Instead of having 2 or 3 workers who would just work for limited period of time, they can now have one slave and make him do the work of 2 or 3 workers, make him do work rigorously for hours. So it was anytime a very profitable deal for them to have buy few slaves at nominal price and make them work tirelessly on their plantations and even at their homes. So that is why the southern states, which were agricultural economy, they were very much reliable on slavery, and these were known as the slave states. In northern, the industrial economy, they were very progressive and they were totally against the system of slavery. They understood the horrors of the system of slavery, how people are given this inhuman treatment. They were against it. They promoted wage earners, that people should come and the amount of work they do, they should be paid accordingly. They are given various rights as well. So the north had industrial economy, they were the free states, and they relied on wage earners, while the south had an agricultural economy because of the favorable conditions, their climatic conditions. And because of this agricultural economy, they relied on the work of the slaves, and they were known as the slave states. So this one major difference of having slavery as a crucial part of the southern economy made a point of became a point of conflict between the north and the south. Let us see understand the differences. We see the northern states, they have industrial economy. The economy is based on industrial industries and the gigantic factories and the manufacturing centers that are developed there. The southern states is an agricultural economy. Now, why did the northern states industrialize? Because of the industrial revolution, which in America happens between 1815 to 1860. In southern states, there are great plantation industries. In the northern states, we see there are gigantic factories, flourishing trade and commerce happening, while in the southern states, there are large scale cotton, tea, tobacco, rubber, sugar plantations. The northern states, because they had industrial economy, they required wage earners, wages, salary, and the southern states, they were highly dependent on the slave labor. Now, let us try to understand the causes of the civil war. So, one major reason for the differences between North and South was this slavery. The southern states wanted slavery to continue because it was, helping them make huge profits. They will buy slaves at very nominal rate, make them do a lot of work, and earn huge profits out of them. So they were highly dependent on slavery and they wanted slavery to continue. But the industrial north was totally against this system. So this was one major reason, and there were other reasons as well, which created a lot of conflict, which eventually resulted in the civil war happening between the northern and the southern states of America. Let us see all the causes of the civil war. We see that the first one reason was the conflict over improvement in transport and communication system. We see that the northern states, the industrial north, they were in support of improvement in the transport and communication system, more development to happen, while we see that the southern states were totally against this improvement in transport and communication system. They said that it is going to adversely affect the soil fertility, it is going to bring down the production of the crops, and it is going to negatively impact the plantation industry. So that is why they were not in favor of much improvement in the transport and communication system. So this was one reason of conflict. Northern states favoring the improvement in transport communication, while the southern states being against it. Then the second reason of conflict was the protective tariff. What is tariff? Tariff is any tax which is applied over any import or any export. Suppose if we are importing a product from China, so our country levies an import duty or import tax on that product. Now suppose if we are sending any product from our country to China, so China will also be applying some duty on the products which we are sending. So that is tariff applied on the exported products. So that is how it works. Tariff is any tax which is applied over import or export. We see that the northern states were in favor of imposition of protective tariffs to boost their industries. How? The industrial north, they were having many manufacturing centers, so they themselves were manufacturing many products. So they said that if our country is going to impose protective tariff on any imported good, any good from coming from any other country, so that will make the price of that imported product rise. For example, if you are importing, say, a cell phone from a foreign country, okay, now if our country imposes a protective tariff, so there is a price of that cell phone plus there is a tax which is now applied on it. Now the person who has to buy will have to pay both of them, the tax also and the price also. So that will automatically make the price of that cell phone rise. So if the product which is coming from another country is getting more expensive, so obviously the local people are going to buy local products which are cheaper, which do not have an import duty levied on them. So that is why the northern manufacturing states, they believe that it is good to impose protective tariffs on the imports of foreign goods, so that they become expensive and people do not buy that, and our local manufacturing products will be bought by the people, and it will help to boost our economy. So we see the northern states, they favored to boost the industries, while we see the southern states, now the southern states, they were highly reliant on imported products. they imported a lot of products from other countries. They required, many raw materials and other products from different countries. So they did not want any, protective tariff to be imposed on that, which will make it expensive, and so it will be difficult for them to buy those required products. So the southern states, they were totally against the imposition of protective tariffs, as it would harm their economy. So this became another reason of conflict between northern and southern states. The northern states, we should have protective tariffs which will give a boost to their manufacturing industrial economy, while the southern states, because they imported a large number of products, they were against the imposition of protective tariffs, and so they were totally against. They said it will harm their economy. So this was another point of conflict between the northern and southern states. Then we see that another point of conflict were the new western states. The new western states of Texas, Mexico, California, etc., they were now to be included and become a part of United States of America. Now what happened? There was a conflict as to whether these new states, they should become free states or they should become slave states. That is, should slavery be a part of these states or not? So obviously the northern states, they did not want slavery to be spread. They were against this evil system of slavery. So they did not want these new states to have slavery in them. While the southern states, they were in favor of introducing slavery in these newly acquired western states. So this issue of spread of slavery in these new states, western states of Texas, Mexico, California, etc., it became another reason of conflict between the north and the south. Then another cause is the right and freedom of a state. Now the question arose as to how much of a freedom does an individual state have in America? How many rights does each state have in America? The northern states, they wanted that all the states of America, they should remain one. They should remain together as a nation. They should stand united. While the southern states, they wanted to secede. That is, what does this word mean? To withdraw from the union. They wanted to live independently. They did not want to be a part of the union and not be able to exercise their own will in their own states. They wanted that they should have the freedom to decide whether to have slavery or not, or how to function in their own states without any interference. So they just wanted to secede or withdraw from the union. So another question arose, do the states have this right to secede or withdraw from the union and function on their independently, or whether they should remain united and come to a compromise that brings all the states together? So another question arose over the right and freedom of an individual state. Again, we see the north is favoring the that all the states should remain united together as a union, one nation, while the southern states, they wanted independence and work individually. Then another major reason that we already talked about, slavery. This was one of the major issue that happened between the northern and the southern states. The northern states, which are also known as the abolitionists, because they wanted to abolish slavery. They were totally against this evil system of slave system, and they were totally against it. They wanted to ban it, while the southern states, they were against abolishing slavery. As we've already studied, they had an agricultural economy, plantations were there, so they required labor which would work quite rigorously, and they required more intensive labor. So they were totally against abolishing slavery, as it would have an impact on their plantations and so on their economy. They were totally in favor of having slavery system, while the northern states, they were totally against the system of slavery. So these are the major reasons which become point of conflict between north and south. They are all are emerging as poles apart, having different ideologies, different beliefs, different economy, and different takeover things. So that is how the conflict begins. The North wants everyone to stay together as one union, while the southern states are no more interested in being part of the union. They want to secede or withdraw from this union and work independently. So this is what leads to the American Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865.